Hey everyone, Dan Lee here, and I'm just back with another real estate topic that's come up a couple of times recently, and that is agents who are working in an agency and are scared to leave either to another agency or go to start their own business because they're scared that their boss might come after them with some scary legal letters. Because when you're an agent, you sign an agency agreement and you don't think about it at the time, but when you go to leave, you read it and you find out there's restraint of trade clauses in there, which may say something like you're not allowed to service a client within a specific area or within a specific time frame. And that quite often scares agents, thinking that they're trapped and that they might get into some sort of really big legal battle if they are to leave the agency and start trading somewhere else. And this is often something that's very far from the truth. And I just want to talk about some of the points around those contracts and why you shouldn't be so scared to leave your agency for a number of reasons. Now, before I get into it, I just want to make it very clear that I'm not a lawyer and this is not legal advice. I'm just giving you an opinion based on my experience with some litigation that I've dealt with in the past with other agents who I've helped with, and my own experience dealing with a past employer as well. Okay, so disclaimer, this is not legal advice and you should seek your own independent legal advice with any matters. First of all, you got to understand that you have the legal right to leave any place where you're an employee. It doesn't matter if there is restraint of trade in there, it's often just put in there to scare you, and you still have the legal right to leave and go and trade as your profession anywhere else you want. There is some truth in doing stuff in the wrong way, like taking confidential information, stealing intellectual property and things like that. So as long as you avoid doing anything really wrong, there's actually nothing wrong with changing real estate agents and then getting clients that potentially would have called you or got in contact with you regardless of if you're at this agency or a different one, right? So you legally have the right to move. And if someone tries to come after you with restraint of trade clauses saying, oh, well, you met this person whilst you're at that agency, that person doesn't belong to anyone or any agency. In fact, they're not a client unless they have actually signed paperwork with the agency that you currently act. And this is a common misconception, is that inside these agreements it says, oh, you're not allowed to work with any clients within a 3-month, 10-kilometer radius or a 3-month window or something like that. A client is defined as someone who's actually signed up to do business with the agency, right? So if there's not an agency agreement in place with someone, then it's not a client, right? Just because you met someone at an agency and you've got their phone number in your phone and they call you, that's not a client of your agency, right? It may be if you download a list of phone numbers that are inside the CRM belonging to that agency and you steal that information, that could be considered, theft of confidential information. But if someone contacts you or you meet them or you knock on their door, but you met them years ago whilst you're at an agency, that doesn't constitute them being a client, right? And that's a common misconception from a lot of agencies and what agencies want agents to think, is that everyone that they've ever met or any been in contact with is a client that they can't touch. And that's just not true, okay? Secondly, it's really hard to prove whether or not that person would have done business with you at the other agency, and whether that other agency had any bearing on that person coming to that agency, or whether it was just you, and whether or not there was any further relationship outside of business. So if you meet someone at your old agency through doing an appraisal or whatever, and then you meet them a couple of times and they actually become somewhat kind of a friend because you talk regularly and whatever, you've got their number in their phone. Once it's past the business relationship and you possibly even could be considered friends almost, then it's even further from the fact of them being a client only to that company. And that's a really, really hard thing for anyone to prove in court. The other thing is, as a client or a person has the choice to do business with anyone they want. Just because that person has gone to an open home of this agency or met an agent at this agency, it's their choice who they do business with, right? So it's not, they're not owned by the agency. And all of these things are so hard to actually prove in court, which is why you'll see that very few matters ever get to court with real estate agents leaving and, doing anything with clients. If you try and look it up on Google in Australia, how many cases have actually gone to court, you could count them on your hands. And when they have been cases that have gone to court, they've been very, very big cases. So they've been, an agent that was a director who's stolen all this information and, manipulated all the information in the system before they left, and there was a massive trail of all this destruction they did and all these wrongdoings that they did. There's so much proof that they've done so many wrong things to basically not only steal information, but corrupt information and to sabotage the business on their way out, that there actually was serious damages to be claimed. But for just an agent who's just, coming and going, talking to people and listing and selling properties, there's nothing to really prove or go after unless you do the same thing as the agent. You steal a lot of information, you manipulate the system, you create chaos and destruction and actually, create damage to the business on your way out. So if you're not doing any of those things, right, and you just leave in a really normal manner, meaning don't go and steal all the information, don't do stupid stuff like download the entire contact list of the company, onto your computer a couple of days before you leave and then email it to yourself on the company email, all of which is very visible and can be traced. Just don't do things like that, okay? Numbers which have been stored in your phone, of clients, you can leave them there. You can obviously, when you leave, go and reach out in other means to all of these people that you've met over the years, and you can advertise your new business and people will find you anyway. Most of the time it's your phone number that they've got, they've already met you, they're gonna get in touch with you anyway. So, it's really important that your mental health is the most important thing. And if you're being mistreated where you are and you're not happy where you are, you know that there's a better future for you outside of your agency, you should leave. You should leave and find that better option, and do not worry about, the potential legal letter that you might get from your employer, because I can tell you I've helped over 35 agents leave their agency and start their own business now, and I've had about 15 agents leave their agency and come work for my business in time. And of all of those, not one has ever gone anywhere further than a legal letter being sent to the agent once they left, kind of reminding them of what their employment agreement says. Outside of that, nothing ever happens because there's nothing to prove. Quite often what an employer will try and do is just send you some letters if they're gonna do it, right? Most don't, because most just get on with life. Some that are very bitter and want to try and stop you from doing well, they'll send you a couple of legal letters threatening you, but most of the time it's all just hot air, right? It's there, they try and scare you. But they know if they're going to go to the next step and actually try and take you to court, it's going to cost a lot of money. We're talking in the range of $50,000 to $100,000 just to file a lawsuit, right? For what? A couple of commissions that they might be able to say that, a few clients near the end of your tenure there who then went with you at the next business, that they might have got those listings or whatever. It's just not worth it. That's why it never really goes past a couple of threatening letters. And your mental health's more important, your future's more important than what a couple of legal letters is going to do for you. And if they do send you a couple of legal letters, all the more reason for you not to be there, because they're obviously dicks, and the best way to get back at them is just be really successful. Get listings, sell properties, earn money, become successful. That's the best success that you can get out of all of this. Now, just remember that 99% of real estate business owners were once real estate agents at another agency. So every agency that you see is owned by someone who was an agent somewhere, then left. Did they get sued and lose everything? No, they didn't. Agents change companies all the time. You see it all the time. When you're an agent and you go on realestate.com, you're like, oh, such and such has moved companies. Right, this stuff happens all the time. Do you ever actually hear about cases going to court for hundreds of thousands of dollars because an agent left? No, because it never actually happens. So don't be afraid of it. Be afraid of staying at the same place that you don't like when you know there's better potential out there for you. What's it going to cost you in your financials and mental health staying in the same place where you don't want to be, compared to possibly leaving and getting a couple of legal letters that you can quickly sort out? It's just not that scary. Make the move if you want to. If you want to have any other discussions around this, again, I'm not a lawyer and I can't give legal advice, but I'm happy to share my experiences in this world with you if you'd like. And it's easy to give me a call on 0432 219 903. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.